A lot of men think that they're reacting as an adult. I know that I did for the longest time. But in reality, we're just surviving as a child that we once were. Whether it's the anger, the shutdown, the validation seeking, or the drifting that occurs. Most of this started long before we knew it was happening. And until we dig deep to figure out what shapes us, it's going to continue to shape us in ways that we don't want it to. So let's see if there's something to find. I know it might get dark, but I'll always have the light. Welcome to Undivided. I am your host, Adam Maxwell, where we discuss rebuilding your life through faith, discipline, and adventure. Today, I want to talk about the child that you never left behind and what that's doing to you today. Um, I want to go over a few topics that I think are very important. There's a lot to cover, so I'm going to do my best to stay on task with everything that we're going to be covering today. I think that is very important too. That you guys, I know that oftentimes we're driving or we're too busy to be able to do these things, but there's a lot of good information in here today, and I think it'd be smart to begin your journey of journaling, which we will talk about later too. But someday in the near future, I hope to be able to hook you all up with some undivided journals to start journaling. It's not easy to do. It is difficult for myself every single day, but I am doing better and better with practice, and that's what it takes. Practice is what it takes to take your life from what it is to a better version of it, right? So I really encourage you to get a journal and take some notes here today, or come back to it and get some of this information that I am going to be sharing with you. Um, Couple of the things that I want to go over today are childhood trauma responses, things that when we were kids that we maybe didn't recognize while we were children, but we can look back and we can think about how things were back when we were kids, and did we display some of these things, and how did it affect us now here as an adult? Um, a couple of those things are regression, emotional dysregulation, emotional withdrawal, aggression, fear and anxiety, and one that I'm professional at is the comedian syndrome. The comedian syndrome really hits home for me, especially out of all of them, because that was kind of my role growing up, was being the youngest child and having this comedian style to you know cut the tension in the room, right? Um, Another thing I want to talk about a little bit today is fatherlessness. Say that three times fast. I think that you will not be able to. It's the social pandemic right now that people just don't really talk about. 25% of all homes across the nation are fatherless. Um, and being a father, being in a fatherless home or growing up in one, whether they're actually physically gone or emotionally gone or both, it definitely affects young men greatly, and women too. But young men need a father in their household. When you have fatherlessness in the home, you're 2 to 3 times more likely to end up incarcerated, higher risk of poverty, behavioral issues, school dropout, depression, drug use. And the best part about it is mentoring can make a difference. It can mitigate the effects, mentoring, either being the mentor or the mentee, right? Because if you went through your life without a father figure in it and you say don't have any children, going out and helping young people that need you, being a mentor can really help you with that problem, because you're there being able to help these young men, and it can kind of, fix some old wounds. And that's the beauty of having children. right? Once you have your kids, you don't have to be like your dad was. You can be your own dad, and you can do everything that it takes to, look back on the things that you didn't have, and you give those things to your children. And what's going to happen? You're going to be able to let those wounds heal, and you can put that child to bed. You don't have to think about it anymore because you're giving your kid or your mentee, the younger people that you're helping, you're giving them what you didn't have, and that alone helps heal your problems. I'm not saying it's the thing that's going to help you, but it's definitely one of the many things, one of the key factors to helping that. And we're also going to work our way down not only fatherlessness but over enabling. It's a newer and dirtier trend that has been going on is over enabling or over parenting, never allowing your child to fail, never letting them actually go through the natural consequences of sucking, right? Like when I was a kid, I failed, or I got in trouble and the natural consequences came. And oftentimes I'd go home and get slapped in the back of the head for doing whatever it was that I was doing because I was a jerk or I was being a pain in the ass. Excuse my language, but it's just the truth. And when you do this over enabling and you over parent, it prevents them from developing essential life skills, resilience, independence on their own. It stunts maturity. Entitlement is a huge problem. They think that they deserve everything all at once, and if it doesn't come their way, they'll just walk out on you. Strained relationships between the child and the parent, because at some point the parent usually ends up taking the brunt of this in the long term, and they sit there and they just have nothing left to give, and it strains the relationship, and it increases the anxiety and depression within that individual, the one that is being over parented. um, there's emotional survival patterns that we're going to go through a little bit later as well. I could hit them all. And then there's accountability and healing. We are going to hit that at the end after we discuss everything, because it is the main point of all of this is trying to find a way to look back. It's what's essential for healing. It allows individuals to break the cycle of these behaviors that these adult behaviors that are from our childhood that we just can't let go of, or we're just not even identifying the fact that it is because of our childhood that these behaviors are happening. We blame it on other things. We blame it on our stupid choices, or we blame it on the world as a whole. The world's never been easy to live in. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's always been trouble. There's always been problems. There's always been war. There's always been disease. There's always been death. There's always been issues within the world. But somehow, millions and millions of people find a way to make their way through it. If you're not making your way through the world the way that you want to, then maybe we need to look inward. And that's what we're going to try to do. So, the accountability and the healing, there's some key aspects to that are important. Um, Key aspects are owning your own impact, repairing after rupture, and several others. Common healing patterns and practices, something we're going to cover as well. And the common obstacles, they're called the 4Ds, that prevent people from being able to truly get what they want out of life. Um, you're shooting for it, but you end up failing to failing to launch or failing to get to the next level as an adult because of these four things that we have issues with. Um, Thing that we don't really think about is how our childhood, once we grow up, we're like, oh, it's a thing of the past, right? But the problem is that you don't recognize often is that your childhood doesn't stay in your past, it comes right along with you. But sometimes it lives in the back room of your brain. And I'm currently having some technical difficulties, so just bear with me. We're just going to pretend like this isn't happening, but it is. Get it? Um, my device is just being super great. So we will continue on and do it a little bit different today. So anyway, your childhood does not stay in your childhood. It comes with you. It follows you right where you are today. One of the things is hypervigilance is one of the key factors that I have, you know, eh, noticed that I've developed how many of these patterns in my life. It's pretty wild that that it is that way. But hypervigilance um, is constantly scanning for danger, difficulty relaxing, even when you're in a safe environment. It really reminds me a movie that I always loved was Jason Bourne. I don't know, you're probably familiar with it. There's multiple in the series, but Jason Bourne in the first one, he's in a restaurant and he just is scanning the restaurant. He's looking for the exits. He's looking for the guy that's got the gun in his truck, and he knows everything that's happening around him at all times. He's scanning for danger. Where do I have to go? How do I keep myself safe? How do we get in and out of this place without any issues or disturbance? How can I avoid people that might cause trouble or harm? Happens all the time when you're walking down the street. You see a guy that's on fentanyl wiggling around, and you're like, well, I'm going to cross the street and I'm going to head on over there because I'm not going to deal with that. That's pretty natural, but hypervigilance happens all the time. Anything you do, anywhere you go, even like I said, in a safe environment, it can really get you. Next thing is extreme self-sufficiency. Extreme self-sufficiency is you're handling your shit all the time, all by yourself, with very little help from anybody. And that goes all the way back to childhood, right? You don't want to ask for help. You're afraid that somebody's going to think something of you, or you're going to make them mad for even asking for help. And I think that that's one of the things that really shows its face when we're adults, is where we're afraid to ask our friends and our family for help when we're having these problems. um, I know that I do. I try to figure everything out for myself. Now I have the AI companion that can help me figure out some of these things. But I've been trying to open up a little bit more and talk to the people around me that I love uh, when I have this issue inside of my head, where I'm like, "Am I doing the right thing? Is this where I want to go with the conversation, or my life, or my family members, or having a discussion with anybody, a friend?" I try to bounce some of these ideas off of other people because that extreme self sufficiency can really hinder you. And everything from graduating high school, I tried to do it on my own. Obviously, there's teachers, but my mental health journey, I tried to do everything on my own. Starting my construction business, I just leaned into it and I just put my head down and I tried to do it all by myself. And by the time I got to that point where I was building Maxwell Construction, I'd gone through a lot of this journey of mental health and trying to better myself for my family and my friends. Um, I still had some issues, obviously, but I was trying to reach out to my dad a little bit more because he was in construction. And as we got older, my father and I both, we've developed a much better relationship than we had when I was young. But when I was young, it still affected me. We're not having him around as much as I wanted to, or as much as he wanted to. So being extremely self-sufficient is a huge sign that there's some patterns that you have developed from when you were a child. Um, Another is people pleasing and fawning. People pleasing, absolutely. I think we're all guilty of it, especially in Minnesota. They call it Minnesota nice. So you just try to sacrifice your own needs to make sure that everybody else is happy. Try to be nice as you can possibly be. Don't get in anybody's way. If you try to avoid at all costs of making it an issue for anybody else but yourself. And sometimes, and not always, but sometimes that turns into white lies, things that might get you in trouble. Okay, I remember a long time ago when my wife and I were dating. We weren't married yet. And I said that I was going to go home and go to bed or whatever. And she's like, oh, okay, sounds good. And I knew in my head that I was actually going to go out and meet up with the boys, or meet up and drink. And I didn't even have to lie to her. I just did it because I didn't want her to get angry. I didn't, I was trying to avoid the confrontation that could my own brain constructed. It wasn't even there. I thought she was going to get mad in my own head without knowing she was actually going to get mad or not. She wasn't going to. And so I fibbed to her and I said I was going home when I knew I was going out. And what happened? Oh boy, as lies usually do, they come back to get you. I was out and one of her friends saw me. She was bartending at the establishment that I went to, and ended up getting back to Lauren, that I was out. And she said that if you continue this crap, then this isn't going to work. And I had to work really hard at it because growing up, it was one of the patterns that I developed was people pleasing and fawning and telling these white lies to avoid any kind of drama. Um, and you're giving up all this extra time that you don't even have to people, and then you're breaking promises left and right as well because you're like, oh yeah, I'll help you, yeah, I'll help you, no problem, I'll be there for you, and then you over serve your own plate, and you just can't even finish. You don't have enough time to be able to help everybody, and then your friends can't rely on you anymore, right? So stop it. um, then emotional shutdowns. Emotional shutdown is another one that I was good at. I think that there's multiple people in my family that were good at that, and not just my family, but all over the place. I guarantee that you can definitely relate. That's where you disconnect, right? Somebody comes to you with a situation. I mean, even a minor situation, and you disconnect from that situation, and you shut down on them, and you become numb, or you feel helpless, and you get backed into a corner. And oftentimes that emotional shutdown can 100% turn into aggression or retaliation or getting angry and saying things that you don't want to. And so we don't want to get there with that either. And then perfectionism and control, right? You want to control every aspect of your life because if it's all under control, then nothing can go wrong. But that is as far from the truth as you can possibly get, because there is no such thing as perfection. And as soon as you think that you've developed this perfect little life or perfect little system, one twig out of place is going to make the whole thing. It's a house of cards, make the whole thing crumble right to the ground. And so you're just trying to manage the internal chaos. You're trying to manage the external with the internal. And oftentimes that's because of the chaos that was in your past. Whether there was nobody there for you when you needed them, things were unpredictable, your environment was unpredictable, you didn't have a schedule of any kind growing up. You couldn't rely on your parents or your siblings or whatever it may be. And you then, as you get older, you try to create this perfect little system, but all it takes is one little bug and it collapses. So that's one of the hardest ones. Um, and then there's parentification. Parentification is when um, a young person has to step up and take on the role of a parent. Usually, this is reserved for the eldest child or the older child or the last one, the oldest in the home. Um, Helping taking care of their siblings, helping take care of their parents if they're drug addled or they're drunk all the time, um, and that's like the hardest one of the hardest things is that. Brip, brip, brip. Hold on a second, kids. There we are. That's better. The camera likes to do its own thing sometimes. If I accidentally make a hand gesture, it like it starts moving. AI is great, but then sometimes it sucks. So anyway, back to it. Parentification. That happens to the oldest. They feel like they need to take care of the younger siblings or the parent in these situations. Avoidance and distractions. You completely steer clear of all uncomfortable situations, and I am super guilty of this. Is overworking, working your butt off. You try to utilize that as a coping mechanism for dealing with life. Avoidance and distraction can be in the form of overworking and constantly be working overtime and extra hours, staying busy at all times to avoid the underlying stress that's in your life. And that can be just as bad as some of these alcoholic, all the drug problems and behaviors that require substances to get there. Um, you're just quashing all of this, all of these issues. So if you have the avoidance and distraction plus you have substance abuse issues, you're going to work, 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 come home, start drinking, and you never ever feel the feelings that are inside. And it's hard to talk about it, right? Being a dude, I mean, I don't enjoy it, and some people are like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about my feelings, it makes me a pussy." Um, that's again garbage, because I could sit here and swear about it all day long. I if anybody knows me, they know that I love to utilize the vocabulary that I've been gifted over the generations of humanity. But I'm doing better and better every day, trying not to be that, right? Like, you just try to get better every single day, and including not swearing constantly. But you got to man up and do these things. Being a man isn't just being tough, it's also facing your feelings and facing these issues head on. Some of the toughest stuff that I've ever had to do in my life. When I quit drinking and when I quit smoking pot, uh, all these emotions just started bubbling up. And I'm like, what is this crap? I don't want anything to do with this. So I'd start smoking weed again and then just shove that crap right back down. And if I wasn't working, I was smoking or drinking, and it just allowed me to ignore this stuff. And I know that there's many of you out there that are doing the exact same thing. And you might think that dealing with those problems is for the pansies out there, but I can tell you right now, it's harder and more badass of you to head take these emotions head on and do this for you and your family and the people around you, because then you can be the baddest ass that you can possibly be if you're there for them and for yourself every single day. So let's hit those all real quick again. There's hypervigilance, extreme self-sufficiency, people pleasing, emotional shutdown, perfectionism and control, parentification, and avoidance and distraction. And the problem is that your childhood doesn't stay in your childhood. It builds the foundation for your adulthood to stand on. So you have to do something about it. You got to talk to that kid, because he's in there. Whether he's sitting there holding his knees in the dark corner of your mind, he's in there, whether you want to bother him or not. But I assure you, it's worth every second to be able to bother that little kid and say, "Hey, man, I got you." Because as soon as you can do that, you can start to heal. And as soon as you start healing, you can be there for your family. You can be the best version of yourself. And once you start to fix these issues, you can start to help other people. You can't fix others when you yourself are broken. You can give it a shot, but when people see you going back to that same old pattern, it's hard to believe what they have to say to you, and that's the hardest part about it. Um, so moving on from some of these patterns and um, that people are having to deal with, some of these childhood survival patterns that hit your adulthood. That has a lot to do with the parents not being in the home, instability in your home. Um, and when you're a little kid, abandonment, whether it's physical or emotional. Physical, you have nobody there to play catch with you. Your dad's not there to play catch with you. He's not there to teach you how to fish. He's not there to teach you how to shave. I know exactly what that feels like. Um, but I had my buddies, and we didn't have the internet like you guys have today, right? Like, I couldn't just go online and watch a video on how to shave my face. I would have to like look it up or find it somewhere, or hope that Home Alone showed me enough, and I wasn't going to throw any aftershave on because it'll burn your face off. At least that's what I thought when I was a kid. Um, and if they're not there emotionally, even if they're there physically and they're not there emotionally, you have nobody to teach you how to handle life properly because they're checked out, right? You can teach your kids so much just by doing life right. You don't have to tell them anything. You can. You don't have to tell them anything, but if you walk the line and you do right by them and you work your butt off and you show them how to live, they'll follow in those footsteps. I mean, a kid gets tired, man, of you harping on them over and over. You need to do better. You need to work harder, right? But I wish I would have had that looking back now, but I didn't. I did later in life, but when I was a child, I didn't have it. Um, and when you have that abandonment and there's the parents, whether they're not there at all or they're not there emotionally, you build this instability. That doesn't even make sense. I don't know why I said it that way. You have instability within your life, and you can't build a true family foundation, and that includes as you're growing up, you're part of sports, and the family is not showing up for your sporting events. They're not showing any emotional support when you have any issues. You try to talk about problems within the household. If they're not there emotionally for you, you try to talk about these issues, and they blow up on you, and they just um, they don't want to talk about it because it's hard for them. It hurts them. So you could beat up your parents all day long about how they parented, but you got to have a little empathy too. You got to look at them and say, well, why were they the way that they were? Was it because of something that happened to them growing up and nobody helped them with their problems? Yeah, probably. That's got to be the case. So when you're looking at, trying to point a finger at anybody, once you become an adult, you can point a finger right in the mirror. You get to make the difference and you get to change your trajectory at that point and change your trajectory, not just for you, but for your family, for your wife and your kids as well. Because if you don't like the way that you were raised, then do something different for your kids. I mean, it sounds easy, right? But it's not. And you need to just man up and you need to take care of your stuff and you need to take care of your family and you need to take care of you. Put down the bottle, put down the weed, put down the anger and think about what you're doing. Try to get yourself into a little bit of an emotional, you know, um, having a little bit of emotional intelligence when it comes down to things. Um, and that has to do the emotional intelligence has to with the lack of emotional safety. When you can't talk about your problems or you have no that develops no emotional control. Because if you try to talk about your problems and somebody flips out on you for it, what do you think you're going to do? Like I said, when you're showing, you just show your kids how to live. You can tell them all sorts of stuff because you have to, because there's a ton of things to learn out there. I mean, why do you think it takes 18 years for a kid to even move out? If they even do move out when they're 18, you might have a 25-year-old in your house or a 40-year-old in your basement. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're the 40-year-old. I hope you're not. Get out there, get out of your parents' house, go do something, get a job, get an apartment, find a friend, have a roommate. That's the other thing. Like these kids now, they're like, "Oh, I just don't make enough money to be able to have my own place." Well, no kidding. Neither did we. I had 5 roommates at one time and it was disgusting. So, get off your butt, get off your ass and go work. Go find some friends, right? Um Off on a tangent. That's my job. Survival mentality too. That's that's one of the hardest parts, right? Your survival mentality. You do or you say whatever necessary to obtain what you need to obtain your needs or to avoid conflict, whether that includes lying, whether that's being deceptive. That survival mentality, sometimes you don't even realize what it's doing to you and your relationship. You just try to avoid the problems. You try to avoid fighting with your spouse. You try to avoid even having the confrontation because you want to have a couple extra beers or something, or you want to go out with the boys, or uh, you don't feel like dealing with cleaning the house or whatever it may be. Um, so the outcomes of all these things that we just discussed are drifting that we've spoken about in earlier episodes, distrust. You're going to build distrust amongst the people around you because of the survival factors of it. Uh, Trying to get away with whatever it takes to avoid conflict or any issues. Some guys don't avoid conflict at all, and they just get pissed off and they want to fight. And that's another big problem of some of these things that when you're a kid, how they're affecting you today, right? Being abandoned and nobody caring for you, that develops a whole new breed of hate. And you got to let go of that kid, man. You gotta know that the things that you're doing and how you're doing them do not have to reflect how that child felt, because you're a grown ass man now and it's time to do something about it. and you build that distrust, you chase validation. Um, you have no commitment because nobody had commitment for you. It's a learned behavior. And self-destruction. Self-destruction is a thing that I have had to deal with over and over and over again in my life. As soon as something that was going good, the highs and lows that we spoke of, um, something had to give, right? Things are going too good, and you just like shut down or give up and self-destruct your life. Whether your relationship is going on longer and you feel uncomfortable with it because you never saw a positive relationship in front of your eyes, that can kill a guy in a second. So when nobody teaches you stability, you spend far too many years searching for it, even if it's right in front of you. Um, like what does it even look like? Even if you have stability right in front of you, sometimes you don't know what it looks like because you never had it in the first place. Uh, with my marriage, it was the most stable I'd ever been in my entire life, but I was still searching for something. And it was hard to figure out what that was, but I think you guys already know what it is. I talk about it just about every episode. Probably going to talk about it in this one too. But you got to make sure that you're not killing yourself with all these things, guys. Um, because having the instability in your life is one of the driving factors of why you are the way that you are today. Um, and there's a whole nother side. The other side to this abandonment or instability is the over enabling parents, the ones that say you have a single, fatherless home once again, or motherless home, and your parent, they feel like they need to save you at every turn. Um, I don't really have personally any real interaction with this style of parenting. I was not over parented. I was not over enabled by any stretch, but I know that I can see it on a regular basis with these children coming up and coaching, and I can point out the kid that doesn't get to fail. I can point them out in a heartbeat. I mean, it's a red thumb without a question that you can see. And many, think that this is love, like it's love, not letting them fail. Oh, I'm going to just help them with everything, their homework. I'm going to help them with later on in their lives, their bills. I'm not going to let them fail. If they get in trouble, I'm going to stand up for them like I'm their buddy. Well, that's going to screw everybody over because in the beginning, it seems like love and you're doing what you can, but it will end with destruction and broken hearts. Whoever's it is, moms, dads, the kid, both. I'm sure that it probably ends with both. And when you get into that point, when you get to that level where they've been enabled so much, you get this kid that just feels as though they can do anything whenever they want to. They don't give a shit about what anybody else's feelings are. Excuse me. Then that's saving your child constantly, no accountability. Then they're emotionally fragile. Like, I don't know if anybody's worked with any of these youngsters coming up right now, the entry levels, and you try to give them constructive criticism, and they just about throw the hammer on the ground and cry and stomp off and walk themselves 15 miles home from the job site, or leave the kitchen immediately, or they can't handle it because, oh no, you told them no. That's over enabling does to them, is they don't even have any kind of emotional intelligence whatsoever. They're fragile as a snowflake. They're incapable of handling any discomfort whatsoever. Common examples are quitting easily, victim mindset, dependency, and the inability to lead. um, you can't lead the world around if somebody has done everything for you throughout your existence. And it really falls onto that COVID cohort. I don't know if I've really talked about that much, but my older boy, he was part of that COVID cohort. They were at the very, very detrimental age, that 12 years old, 15, 16, 12 to 16 ish, give or take a couple years, where they didn't get to properly, um, socialize with each other. They had masks on their face. They were handed a tablet, shoved into their rooms, and told to do work, but they really didn't have to do anything. They were over enabled by not just parents, but the entire school system. And these people thought they were doing right by them because they were going through hell, just like everybody else was. But their brains were just wiring themselves in that moment, and it took everything away from them. And if you're part of that COVID cohort and you're listening to me, I assure you that you can do something about that. You can change that. If you feel like you were screwed, you were. And I mean, it's just like anybody else. Somebody's going to screw you over, and you're going to feel like you got the short end of the stick without a question. And nobody's going to come and save you. You need to save yourself, and you need to do it today. And that's what this is all about. So that, like I say, that COVID cohort, it really screwed them over, and it's not just them, right? The over enabling is all over the place because people want to be their kid's buddy rather than their parent. And you can be their buddy later, as they grow up and they get older. You can be their best friend later, man, and that's the coolest part. I had to be a stickler and a jerk to my older boy for a period of time because he was having trouble coping with the world and coping with how to handle everything. And I was a dick to him, and that's how he saw it. But now he's getting older and he's starting to understand things. He's starting to see how the world really works. We allowed him to fail multiple times and rebuild himself, which was a beautiful thing to see. I want you to know it's worth it. It's worth being the enemy for a minute to be the buddy later, because he's starting to really come around and show me that he gives a crap and he wants to go try to strive out there in the world. And if you have kids out there that are in the same age range, I assure you it's not easy, but you need to fight for them. You need to fight for them to be able to function in this world. You need to teach them. And if you are having a hard time doing that, maybe we need to work with you and get you to be a more fixed individual to help them. And if you have no idea where to go and no idea what to do, there is counseling out there that can definitely help. And betterhelp.com is a great place to start. I'm not totally sold on talk therapy. You can look into it for yourself. But talk therapy, there's goods and bads about it. And again, I'm not the professional to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I think that if you have nowhere else to go, talk therapy is phenomenal. As long as you find the right person for you. It's like shopping around for a doctor or shopping around for the person that's going to fix your car. Don't just go to the first one and say, "Yeah, this will do," and it might not. That person might do more harm than good, and I might do that too. Who knows? Um, but as you get older and you become an adult and you're having all these problems, I can assure you that your childhood is showing if you are doing any of these things. Um, and part of those things when you're a child, there's regression, there's emotional dysregulation, emotional withdrawal, aggression, fear, anxiety, and like I talked about earlier, the comedian syndrome. Um, Regression when you're a kid, if you think back, like you need to look inward. And that's the hardest part is to sit down long enough, whether sit down long enough sober, or whether it's sit down long enough because you don't even have enough time. That's where we've talked in earlier episodes about meditation, trying to go for that walk with no media. Try not to put anything in your ears for 50 minutes. Last time I was talking about the 50 minutes, I was like, yeah, for the first 50 minutes and the second 50 minutes. Well, that's not 50 minutes. 25 minutes and 25 minutes. Obviously, simple math. I do have a calculator. I checked it. I made sure that I was right this time. But you can take a little bit of time and look back on yourself as a child and think about these behaviors and if you had anything to do with them. So like the regression, it's reverting to younger behaviors than you are. It's thumb sucking at too old an age, wetting the bed, or intense clinginess. If your child is clinging to you at an age that it feels a little bit unnatural, it probably has something to do with what you're doing or what they did or your past. Like you have this trauma from your past. The emotional dysregulation is the inability to manage intensity and duration of emotional responses. So you start to get angry and you just can't manage it. It just gets out of control. It takes off. And you can't regulate you have the inability to regulate your emotions. If you had that when you're a kid, you threw tantrums, you freaked out, they couldn't calm you down, or the teachers couldn't calm you down. I knew a couple guys like that in high school that had no emotional regulation. Emotional withdrawal. You detach, you shut down, you pull away emotionally from others to avoid vulnerability, conflict, or overwhelming stress. Emotional withdrawal is something that people do often because you just don't want to deal with those problems, and you'll just walk away from right in the middle of a conversation and probably storm out of the house or whatever. And often with emotional withdrawal comes aggression, fear, and anxiety. They all kind of come together. um, Not always, but I think often they do. And the aggression, we obviously know what that is: physical, verbal, or social behaviors intended to cause harm, injury, or violate others. Um, I was the youngest kid, so I mean, my grandma always told me that I wore my heart on my sleeve. Um, God rest your soul, Audrey. I love you. I miss you a lot. You're probably one of the pillars in my life that I leaned, and my grandpa Chuck, gone as well. Love them very much both. But I wasn't excitingly aggressive. I had my times. I fought. Actually, some of my best friends that I ever had, I fought first. One of them still my homie, for sure. So aggression obviously is one of those things. If you think back about was I aggressive, that's induced, oftentimes by abuse in itself, not being taken seriously, nobody being there. Abandonment has a lot to do with that too. And then fear and anxiety is induced by abuse, neglect, or household dysfunction, causing the brain to become hypersensitive. So you're afraid of loud noises. You're afraid of people yelling. You're afraid of all the things that may cause any issues with you. Um, so you become hypersensitive, and then the anxiety comes along, and your heart races, and you feel sick to your stomach because of these things that happened to you in the past when you were a child. Um, so you got to look, take that time to think about when you were a kid. Are these some of the things that are you? And so that'll just kind of give you a glimpse into yourself, and you can try to help that young man that was inside of you upgrade, get back up on the horse. Don't be afraid. Know that you don't need the alcohol and the drugs to squash it down. Because I'm telling you, when I stopped doing the drugs that I was doing, smoking the pot, all that shit just came bubbling up, and it was overwhelming. My wife didn't even know who I was half the time because of it. And I was thankful enough to have somebody like her in my corner to help me through all of my ups and downs and shitty behavior, not treating her exactly the way that she deserved. But I can't change the past. All I can do is change the future and try to give her the man that she deserves, and your children the man that they deserve, and your friends and family the man that they deserve. You need to talk to him, that kid inside, and give these people around you and yourself the man that you deserve. And I've got a couple questions. Oh, shoot. I almost forgot the comedian syndrome. I don't know if any of you out there uh, used to enjoy being a fool to try to cut the tension in the room. This definitely hits with individuals with a history of childhood trauma or adversity, and you use humor as a primary defense mechanism. Um, one of my one of the stories that kind of pops into my head anytime that I ever think of this is I remember, you know, our dinner table when I was young, when our parents were still together, we would sit down for dinner together. And towards the end of my parents' relationship, there's often tension at the table, right? There's no room for being rude or being a kid at the table. If you didn't want to eat your fat, you get screamed at. If you tried to be funny, you get yelled at. But anytime there is any tension at the table, because oftentimes that's where people talk about their problems, right? We talk about your day, and if somebody was a jerk at school, a kid, you might get reprimanded, and there are times where that reprimand became too intense, and I remember standing up on my chair and punching myself in the balls for fun. I mean, to try to cut the tension. And I made my sister and my brother laugh, and it changed. And I think that was the beginning that I remember of becoming the comedian. And I found that if I can be the comedian, I can cut the tension in the room. Uh, Weird story, right? I mean, but it's something that really sticks anytime that I ever think about being that comedian. So I got four questions that you can ask yourself in these moments of meditation or in these moments of journaling. And I want you to write these down. And you don't have to tell anybody about it. This is for you. This is for that inner child. It's for that kid that didn't have what he needed when he was a kid. So I can wait a second for you to get a piece of paper and a pen. Um, or I can just take a drink of my water. Okay. Number one is, what did younger you need? Again, this isn't easy, and you might be listening like, well, I don't want to deal with this. Then don't. But I suggest that you do, because it's going to make all the difference in you and your children's lives. Be the difference. Change the trajectory of your family. You don't have to follow down that same path. I've been working really hard for a long time to be able to do that for myself and my family and my kids, so that they can have my grandchildren can have a stable home. Don't think about you so much as your grandchildren, the people, the future of your family, and generational wealth isn't just cash. It's also being able to give them the ability to function, um, as a family, as a society, because the better your children and grandchildren get to function, the more prosperous they're going to be in oh so many ways. So, what did younger you need? Number two is, what emotions were unsafe to express? And I'll put these questions into the description too, of the video, so you can see these. So, what emotions were unsafe to express? What did you learn about love? And this is as you were a kid, right, growing up. And what behaviors kept you safe then but are hurting you now? I'd like to share uh, what my answers were. Um, I had a hard time writing these down, and I'll be fine. But what did younger me need? I said I wasn't going to get too emotional, but here we go. I needed my dad, um, and I know that there's guys out there right now that you need to be that dad that I needed. Um, I wanted, that hug and an "I love you" truly, and some stability. I needed a family that was cohesive. My life was crushed by divorce twice, not just once, but twice. And that was tough. And someone to care when I was all alone. That's what I needed when I was a kid. That's what I needed. And what emotions were unsafe to express? Um, when I was a kid, almost any emotions were not always unsafe, but certainly you wouldn't get the response that you wanted. Sadness and anger, you couldn't question anything or push back on questionable choices that your parents were making. Otherwise, then an emotional bomb would go off. Um, Today, I can handle that bomb, but not when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you know, that's emotional abandonment, right? If you can't even tell your parents how you're feeling. And I'm not sitting there saying you got to sit and have a cry fest every time with your children, but you definitely need to be able to have a conversation with them. The fastest way to get your kid to do what you want them to do is to at least have an explanation of why. If I have a question, if my kid has a question about why we're doing this thing, I can either flip out or I can try to tell, or because I said so. That was a huge response, and I'm sure that you've heard that too. But you don't have to justify yourself to your kid, but you can at least tell them why, right? Like, why is the behavior bad? What's going to come of it? If you do this thing, how is it going to affect you in the future? Um, Next one is, what did you learn about love? When I was a kid, love wasn't real. It was fictional. Um, but you were always told love is what you needed, right? Love, love, love. And especially now, oh, it's all about love. Love everybody. Um, yeah, it'd be cool if we lived in a perfect world, but I also learned that it was fleeting and elusive, right? Like love can come and go so quickly, in one door, out the other. Um, and that's what I knew about it. It didn't seem real, and that was the hardest part about my marriage. Was I finally had somebody who, hands down, 100% loved me, and I didn't know how to handle it. I ran away. I self-destructed. I acted foolish. I did stupid things. I acted in irresponsible ways because it felt too good and I wasn't good enough for it. What behaviors kept you safe then but hurt you now? Being a comedian, um, I could always make people laugh. It was a gift that I was given through trauma. I figured out. Um, I was always the gesture. I was always the person to try to make you feel good, even though I was miserable inside. Um, and that caused emotional withdrawal and emotional dysregulation. Um, and now, over the years, that comedian wasn't the real me. It was a version of me that didn't allow me to really have solid friends. I didn't let solid friends stick around. I mean, a handful, right? There's a couple guys that I'm really close with still, but you know, I know other people that have this whole big group of friends, or maybe it's not real. I don't know. Probably is. But they have these old friends that they still all hang out with and get together with, and I don't have that. And, I could blame other people, but it's on me. Um, you don't heal by pretending the child never existed. Uh, you heal by understanding him and teaching him how to grow. He's still in there. You don't have to be alone. He doesn't have to be alone anymore. You're an adult. You get to choose your path as an adult now. You don't have to be afraid of the things from back when you were a child. You can get better at everything that you do. You can console that young man that once was and know that you can do something about it. And some of the behaviors that revealed these childhood wounds because of the abandonment issues or the overparenting or overcorrecting and all the things that we've talked about so far, is number one is substance abuse. I mean, it's a dead giveaway every single time. Usually you're using substances to curb any emotions because you don't want to face them. Um, and reacting emotionally, instead of taking a moment and having emotional intelligence to be able to have a conversation about something that is a problem, you get mad and you snap at little to no for no reason. You overreact to small problems. You feel like people are attacking you. You avoid commitment because you're afraid to get hurt. That includes friendships, romantic relationships, jobs. Um, I bounced around from job to job in the kitchen. I told myself that I just wanted to learn how to cook everything, and maybe that was true, part of it anyways, but it was also I couldn't hardly commit to anything, including myself. Shutting down, it's quitting before you ever had a chance to win. You get to that point, those highs and lows in life, right? The highest highs and lowest lows. We spoke of this. Um, and thinking that you need to feel that nasty lowest low to be able to appreciate the good that's happening. So as soon as you feel like you're winning too hard, you sort of self-destruct and you F it all up. Seeking approval. Um, you want everybody to like you because you felt like there was nobody there to really to care about you. So you want everybody to like you, and you shut down when things get too good, and you avoid commitment. All those things can cause you to chase toxic relationships. Because if you chase a toxic relationship or a toxic friendship, you don't have to worry at some point that thing's going to blow up in your face, and you don't even got to be the reason. Um, so those toxic relationships will kind of handle all that crap for you. So I chased toxic relationships a lot of my life. Um, ran around and got to know one too many ladies for sure. Something that I used to be proud of. But I look back now and I wish I would have done it a little different. But I didn't. So here I am, and now I've got one, and one is the only one that I'm going to be with. And I hope that you can find that yourself. And the fact is that most people don't even realize they're reacting from these old wounds. They think that they're reacting as an adult, but they're really reacting from that child within. And if you don't face your patterns out there, like if you don't face these patterns that you've developed, your relationships will face them. You will not succeed in a relationship if you can't do the thing, right? Getting in there and getting dirty and trying to fix that little kid. My marriage 110% was not always as good as it is today. I am blessed beyond words, but I had to go through hell to get here. I tried to, I over and over, I tried to sabotage my own life. I struggled to accept the home that I was blessed with because I didn't have a home for a long time. I just kind of was a transient, emotional transient, a emotional tourist. I moved from house to house to house to house, and apartment to apartment to apartment. And it's not about the house that you're living in; it's about the home that you build within it. It's where the home is where the heart is. Um, and I had a really hard time accepting the fact that I finally had that in my life. And boy, did I try to, boy, did I try to mess that up. I lacked emotional maturity and I let my emotions get the best of me. I would react over the dumbest things. I'd get backed into a corner. At least that's what my brain was telling me was happening, even though it was probably just a normal ass adult conversation that I could have had with somebody. But instead, I didn't, I didn't do it. I didn't have the conversation. I would try to point in every other direction but myself. I had to relearn how to communicate with my wife so it worked for us. Um, I had to realize she wasn't the enemy; she was there to help me, and that's your family most of the time too, or friends, or the people that you can really rely on. Um, and I'm no longer that little boy in the corner holding my knees. I'm not that boy anymore. I'm a man that gets to be who he wants to be. I have to, I have to hold myself accountable in my relationship at this point. I can't run away. I lean into my wife. I lean into that relationship. I lean into that positive anchor, even when I'm at my lows, because they're there to help you. Allow the people around you to help you. Don't act like you're burdening them. I think that they feel like you're burdening them even more when you don't let them help you. Um, and those people are there to help you, not harm you, unless you find yourself in a toxic relationship that you've gotten yourself into because of all of the earlier discussed patterns and recognitions that you just didn't see until it was too late. And sometimes we get ourselves into these relationships and can't quite get out without really wreaking havoc on more than just your own life. Um, and the last thought on that is it's easy to throw in the towel, but it takes a real man to fight for your life. No matter what, you don't need to be alone, right? You don't need to be alone. It takes the real man to fight for his own life. So if you think all this stuff is kind of mamsy pamsy, pansy, wussy, whatever you want to call it, I can tell you that it isn't as wussy as you think it is. Because if you can make your way through these challenges and through this process, you're going to be the strongest man you've ever been. Even if you can lift 350 pounds right now, try to do that mentally, my friend. And the one thing that I had missing for the longest time, and I think I struggled so much with destruction of myself, was not having faith in my life. And I'm going to bring it up every single episode because it's been such a detrimental, had such a detrimental impact on my life and changing the way that I perceive things. You don't, faith does not erase your past, but it can change how you carry your past. You have help forever. You can pray every day and lean into God and um, have a conversation with Him and find some clarity. In order to find God, you have to be looking for Him as well. If you're not looking for Him, you're not going to find Him. If you're looking for something else, that's what you're going to find. And sometimes letting go of the control and leaving some of these things into in His hands, and guiding you through life. And sometimes when that happens, those moments feel like you're fighting, for air, but it's strengthening you for your future. You have to put in the work. You have to trudge through the mud to get to the better side of things. I don't know if you've ever gone hiking in the mountains before. Um, it's pretty great. If you haven't, I suggest you do. And if you haven't, I hope someday that I can um, crush it with this thing so bad that it's so good, I guess. Bad is in good, that I can have in person adventures with you guys, and we can go hike in the mountains together. That would just be the coolest crap that could ever happen. But when you're hiking in the mountains, sometimes you're just trudging up this big long hill, and it's rocks and some plants and some dirt, and you're gasping for air because the air is thin, and you're like, Jesus, is this worth it? God, is it worth it? And you just keep trudging and you keep trudging. Oh my, yeah, right? And you finally crest the top of that mountain, and the view that you find yourself looking at is just breathtaking. It doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem like something like that could have just developed out of chaos, because it didn't. Um, that was built for you and I. And in order to see those things, you have to work for it. And sometimes it feels like the pain may be too great, but He will only give you what you can handle. And when you battle through and you crush through that pain, there's no hurdle too big for you. And you will continue to strive, and you will continue to become greater. And sometimes the pain that you think is going to break you is the exact thing that makes you. It's just preparation for bigger things in the future. I just want you guys to be able to go from wounded to whole. You might not be able to, patch up everything that you've ever done. You might not be able to patch up every issue. But if you start to fix some of these things, then life's just going to be better. And we can't forget the last thing that is the most important part of this. Otherwise, what the hell were we doing here? And that is, you can't forget about the accountability and healing that I brought up earlier on. And I'm going to read through these so I don't miss it. the accountability and the healing, this here too is something for you guys to take a minute, maybe later or now, if you have your journal out already. Write some of these down or write all of them down. I think that it's very important. So the key aspects for emotional accountability and healing are owning your own impact. Owning your own impact. What is that? It's recognizing valid emotions. You recognize they're valid in the situation. Um, they seem like a valid action to be taken because of the emotions that are valid as well. And you look at it like, okay, this situation could justify me acting in this manner, freaking out, getting angry, yelling, fighting. But you have to see how those expressions that you're about to do can cause harm to the people around you. It may seem valid to flip out because somebody brings up something you don't want to talk about, but you have to be able to own your own impact and what is that going to do to the people around you if you do it. Um, Repairing after rupture is the next. And that's focusing on the impact, not the intent of your behavior. How is your behavior going to impact these people, even if the intent seems right? Sometimes you send a text message or an email or you tell somebody something, and in your own brain, it seems valid. In the way that you typed it, it seems like it is a rational thought because you wrote it. There's a Key and Peele skit where they do it's people how they read a text message and I'll see if I can't find it or whatever for you, but it's hilarious. The one guy's chilling, he's like, "Yeah, man, let's do that," or whatever, and the other guy's reading it like it's all anger. Sometimes like he's being a jerk to him, but he's not. But you have to understand how that person is going to take it, right? It's not how you say it, it's how it's received. And that's kind of focusing on the impact, not the intent of your behavior, because the intent may seem right, but the impact is going to destroy everything around you. Distinguishing responsibilities, recognizing, recognition of what you can versus cannot control, and preventing the burden of others' emotions. So you have to recognize what you can and cannot control in life, distinguishing what things require responsibilities. Like if your car tire explodes, you didn't do anything wrong, it just blows up. There's nothing you can do about it. Is snapping and flipping out going to help anything, or is it going to harm you and the people around you? It's going to show your children how not to act. It's going to show them how to be out of control. You have to be able to, things that you can't control, you got to try to, you know, reel it in and not flip out, right? And the things that you can control, if you have a situation where you know that your tires are getting, old and worn, get them fixed. Because if you don't get them fixed, you could have controlled that tire exploding, right? I mean, it's the same scenario, same object, two circumstances that could have been handled differently. If you control it and you can change that tire and it doesn't explode, wonderful. But if it does explode, then you can just be mad at yourself for it. But if the tire just explodes because um, you can flip out too, but what's it going to help? You can't control it anyway. Moving beyond defensiveness, and this was one of the hardest ones for myself. Was moving beyond defensiveness. When accountability replaces defensiveness, allowing reflection and growth. So taking a moment to not snap, you know, um, moving beyond getting defensive about a situation and owning up to what you may have done to get into the situation in the first place, or that person is just trying to tell you, hey, this behavior isn't working out for anybody. Maybe you should just kind of take a look at it and see if there's something that you can do. And if you can reflect on that, and again, that goes into that meditative side of things. It, if there's a situation that you can remember where somebody brought something to your attention that you kind of overreacted to or flipped out about, is there a better way to be able to handle that? And for me, that's taking a breath and stepping back and being able to think. I believe I go into that a little bit more here in a second. Um, so moving on from that, we have common healing patterns and practices. Common healing patterns and practices. Self-reflection and awareness. Understanding the root cause of emotional reactions. Journaling helps immensely. Go try to do your meditating or your go for your walk and think and pray, and then after you're done, do a little journaling and how that time allowed you to recognize um, how your actions could have been different. Mindfulness and grounding. Take a moment before reaction. I just was saying, breathing, stepping away to think, not reacting immediately. I think people, especially if they know that they're going to be talking to you about a situation that's a little bit on the edge of, um, getting upset. Um, I think they'd understand if you're like, you know what, I need to think about this, and we can continue this conversation later. I just I don't want to flip out, and it was one of the big things with my wife, because I would often react uncontrollably, like I felt like I was getting backed into the corner. You're judging me. This is bull. And I would I recognized that, and I would tell her, okay, if you're going to bring up something to me and I look like I'm getting pissed, I just need a second. Please don't keep nagging on me, or you're going to catch a version of me that you don't want anything to do with. So if you have to help them recognize it too. Where is the warning sign? Where is the warning sign? Do you want them to be able to identify when you're going to act unruly? And I would, when those situations would happen, I would look at her and I'd say, I need to think about this before we keep talking about it. And I'd leave it at that and I'd walk away. It would allow me to collect my thoughts. We would then talk about it later. And it allowed me to be able to have a reasonable conversation with my wife about problems. So, mindfulness and grounding. Take a moment. Setting boundaries. There you go. I just talked about it. You set your boundaries, you create healthy boundaries with each other. Ensure you manage your own mental well being. Um, Try not to drink so much or smoke so much. That might help. Set boundaries for yourself. Um, I can have one beer. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done. I know. Seeking feedback. Asking trusted people in your own life how your behaviors affect them so you can see your own blind spots. That is hard, um, because you're asking people to tell you how much you suck, right? And when you start getting to this point, I think that you can start patting yourself on the back and knowing that you're getting somewhere with it. Because if you can seek the feedback, if you can seek it out yourself and ask them, hey, how did I handle this situation the other day? Was it the right thing to do? Or am I out of bounds? And they'll tell you if you allow them to. Sometimes you just need to shut up. Um, my dad gave me some advice one time, and I have still fight with it on a daily basis. It is sometimes, Adam, you just need to shut the F up. All right. So just remember that. And trauma recovery stages, right? This is when you start really getting to the end of, or not the end of, but when you start to, the setting the boundaries, seeking feedback. Now you got the trauma recovery, awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and healing. You have to be aware of it. You have to acknowledge the stuff. You got to start to accept this information from people that are trying to help you, and then you can begin the healing process. And there's one last thing that I want to cover on this, and That's the common obstacles that people run into when they are trying to actually better themselves. They say it's the 4 Ds. I wish I would have come up with all this stuff myself, but again, I've just been reading and I've been researching and I've been trying to find the best information that I can. And not all of this is going to work for everybody, but I hope that you can just take this and start your journey towards becoming better, right? So the common obstacles are the 4 Ds. First is deny, refuse to acknowledge mistakes or wrongdoing. You deny it, deny. Sure, if you want to try that in the court of law, go for it. It's up to you. But to do it to your own life, to lie to yourself, to not acknowledge the mistakes, if you're going to lie to yourself, then I don't know if there's any help in you. You got to be honest with you. Uh, Next one is deflecting. That's where you shift the blame. It ain't my fault. Shoot, man, it ain't my fault. It's not it's Dale's fault. He's the one that got us into this situation. He said it was going to be all right. Like shifting the blame away from you or shifting the blame onto your parents. A little late for that, right? Like you're a grown man now. Like you're going to shift your blame onto your parents. What's the point of that? You're going to shift it onto them and then what? Create a bigger problem? You just can't shift it back to them because that's not what we're here for. It's not what I'm here for. Like my childhood sucked sometimes. I had some good moments too. We can talk about those someday, but right now we're just trying to figure out what to do about the bad stuff to make our lives better. But I'm not here to belittle my parents or to say that they did everything. I mean, you learn as you go. And you hope that your kids don't end up in prison. I mean, I guess they succeeded enough. Almost, but I'm not here to toss anybody under the bus because what is that going to help? I have to identify what didn't work. I have to identify the things that were missing, and I have to do it differently so that I don't do that to my kids. And I told my dad one time, and I said, Dad, I know that you didn't always teach me what to do, but you also taught me what not to do, and that's just as valuable. He got a little bit pissed off for that, but I'm like, I'm not saying that. Like, at least I learned, right? But you have to be taught what not to do sometimes too to be better. Next is defending, protecting one's ego rather than accepting responsibility. Um, it's kind of like deflecting, but you defend your actions even if they were unreasonable. Well, I did it because he was being a jerk to me or whatever. I mean, like you can't protect your ego if you're not going to try to accept the responsibility. You just if you're doing these things, you're not gonna get better. And diffuse, make excuses to diminish the impact of the behavior. We all do it. There's a million times. Well, I wasn't speeding that fast. I don't know why I'm getting a ticket. I didn't scream at her that loud. I could have said worse things to her. Um, yeah, but you said what you said, and now you're paying for it. And it'll get you every single time. So the 4 Ds: deny, deflect, defend, diffuse. This last bit I know is a little dry, but I think it's worth noting that it's super important, even the dry parts, to get to a point where you can start making a difference here. Um, this shit hurts. You're gonna bring up emotions that you don't want. You're gonna think about situations you don't want. Um, you're gonna think about the shitty things that you did to your kids or your wife or your family members throughout the years. But if you can swim through that crap, everybody's going to be better for it, especially you. Um, so I mean, fact is, I'm calling you out as a man and the man that you've always wanted to be. If you're constantly angry, you're avoiding all of your emotions by drinking and doing drugs or never being home, being absent, being an absent father, whether emotionally or physically or both. If you're drifting through life, not as a father, if you're just drifting down the river, not paddling, waiting for something to happen or waiting to be in the right place at the right time, and if you're using substances to escape it all, then this message is for you. Um, and if this message hits home, share it with the ones that you love. And if you're trying to rebuild yourself, feel free to message me. Find me on Facebook, Undivided with Adam Maxwell on Facebook. I there's other ways to get a hold of me. You can comment and we can talk. You can message me reset. You can visit my website. IamUndivided.com, and there is a contact area where you can send me a message. Check out some other stuff that I got going on there. I'll drop that later, but um, nobody has to do this alone. Um, we need to rebuild our communities. We need to rebuild our brand as human beings. We need to bring these communities back together. And I'm going to be here week after week for you as long as you guys are here for me. Um, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Come visit me at my website. Check out my new apparel line that I'm working on. I'm going to get some commercials going on that once I get my product in hand. Um, thanks for sitting around with me. I know this was long. I know this was hard. But again, it gets dark, but I'll always have a light. I'm always prepared. I love you guys with all my heart. I'm Adam with Undivided. We're trying to rebuild our lives through faith, discipline, and adventure. I will see you next week. Love you guys. Peace out. Justice done. So big. That was smooth as butter. Kind of hard to see, but it's a surprise around every corner. Keep you on your toes. Whoa, whoa.